Ladies and gentlemen, please not make any noise during the rally.
The score above Court 3 in Melbourne on January 19 read 6-0. 6-0. Alexandra Eala had walked Alycia Parks off the court in the first set of a Grand Slam first round without dropping a game, without coughing up a break, and without letting the bigger, older American find any rhythm on her serve. And then, for reasons the box score could not fully explain, the match turned. In the second set, Parks hit 12 aces. 12. On the kind of hard court that rewards a serve like hers if the player can stay calm long enough to use it, Parks stayed calm. Eala, 21 years old and playing only her second Grand Slam main draw, did not. That single set, the 0-6 that happened, the 6-3 that followed, and the final frame that decided everything is the hinge this story turns on, because both of those women are now confirmed for Cincinnati. The draw lands in 5 days. If the bracket falls a certain way, the scoreboard could deliver the sequel the tennis internet has been waiting for since January.
Coming into the tournament, I knew that the competition was super strong.
The head-to-head between Alexandra Eala and Alycia Parks is 1 match long. And 1 match into that rivalry, Parks leads it. That single result came at a Grand Slam, in front of a heavily pro-Eala crowd, against a rising opponent who had just taken her apart for 36 minutes. It is the kind of loss a 21-year-old either carries or converts. 7 months later, Eala sits at WTA number 20 in the world, her best ranking ever and the first Filipina to occupy that band of the standings, locked in after a title run in Washington that closed with 9 straight games won. Cincinnati runs from August 13th through August 23rd. Both names are on the entry list. The draw is expected around August 10th. Until then, this is a story about a rivalry with 1 match on file and the setup for a second. 2 problems sit across the net from each other in this story, and they do not sit there the same way. For Alexandra Eala, the question is finishing. She is built for the kind of tennis that wins openers and stretches sets. Left-handed, fast to the ball, willing to reset a rally 6, 7, 8 times, she can make opponents work for every point. In Melbourne, she showed the full package for the first set and then ran into Alycia Parks' serve, the kind of serve that takes the ball out of rallies entirely and can completely change the texture of a match. 7 months later, in the Mubadala City DC Open Final, Eala won 9 consecutive games to close out world number 3 Jessica Pegula. The finishing skill that vanished in January showed up in August. The question now is whether the gap between that 6-0 dominance and the 0-6 collapse has actually been closed. For Alycia Parks, the question is leverage. Parks reached a career-high ranking of number 40 in August 2023 after winning the Hobart International. In 2026, she sits around number 71, with a 22-23 win-loss record and 0 titles on the year. The serve is still elite. The numbers still prove it. Athens produced a quarterfinal against Maria Sakkari. Washington produced qualifier wins. The player is still capable. But the room she is trying to rebuild toward is harder to find this time around. A statement win over a top 20 opponent like the player Eala has become would be more than a season highlight. It would be a recalibration. Neither problem is the other's villain. They are mirror problems, and they explain each other. Alycia Parks broke down in tears between games during the second set of that Australian Open first round. Broadcast cameras caught it. Sports writers on site described it. The crowd around her was heavily pro-Eala, and a player trying to find her serve rhythm under that kind of pressure can lose the match in her head before she loses it on the scoreboard. Parks did the opposite. She played through it. The numbers behind the comeback tell the story. In the first set, Parks hit 0 aces and faced more break points than she saved. In sets 2 and 3, she hit 12 aces, won 50% of her first serve points, and converted 4 of 17 break points. It was not glamorous on paper, but it was more than enough to erase a 0-6 opening set. She double-faulted 10 times across the match. She still won. That is resilience with a serve, which is one of the most dangerous combinations in tennis. And the texture matters. Eala's first set looked like a young player who had arrived. Her movement was clean, her point construction was deliberate, and her court sense was already a step ahead. That 6-0 set, without dropping a game in a tour-level match on a Grand Slam court against a player standing 6'1" and capable of hitting a much bigger ball, was a true declaration. But the second set delivered a brutal lesson. Declarations without finish do not win titles. There is a difference between winning a set and winning a match. Tennis has known that for a century, but every player has to discover it for herself. The discovery is not a thought. It is a body sensation. The moment the legs get quieter, the breath gets tighter, and muscle memory stops being automatic and starts becoming decision-making. Eala lived that moment in Melbourne. She did not survive it. The rest of her season became the question of whether she could survive the next one. So far, the answer is yes. The numbers from Washington tell the second half of the story. In the DC Open final on August 3, 2026, Eala lost the first set 4-6 to top seed Jessica Pegula. She won the second 6-4. Then she won the third 6-0 and finished by winning 9 games in a row. The scoreline was not simply the inverse of Melbourne. This time, she was the one coming from behind. And she did not just come back. She closed the door. The match produced a quote that captured the transformation perfectly. When asked how she held herself together during the closing stretch, Eala explained that she was so nervous her wrists were shaking, but instead of fighting the nerves, she let them stay. That sentence describes a different player from the one who allowed her composure to slip in January. The technical difference between a 6-0 set at the Australian Open and a 6-0 set at the DC Open is enormous. One was collapse. The other was release. The same scoreline across 2 events in the same calendar year back. AME, the scar tissue of a 21-year-old's growth. The ranking refresh confirmed the trajectory. After the DC Open title, Eala climbed to a career-high WTA number 20, moving 8 places into a ranking band that, just 3 years earlier, would have seemed almost unreachable from the Philippines. She became the first Filipina to reach that level. That sentence does not need to be repeated more than necessary. It is true, it is recent, and it will remain in the record books for a long time. But the more durable story is what happened underneath the ranking. The technical foundation. The mental foundation. The ability to absorb pressure and still make the right decision when the match begins moving away from her. That is what Eala has rebuilt since January. Both players are confirmed on the Cincinnati Open 2026 entry list. Eala's appearance was flagged months in advance when the tournament announced its singles field. Now the question is simple. Will the draw put them across the net again? If it does, January will not be the story anymore. January will be the evidence. Because the first meeting proved that Parks could survive Eala's best start and turn the match around. Washington proved that Eala can now do something she could not do in Melbourne. She can feel the match slipping. She can feel the nerves. She can feel her hands shaking. And she can still finish. That is why a second meeting would mean far more than another entry in the head-to-head record. It would be a test of everything Eala has become since that 6-0 first set in Melbourne. And for Parks, it would be a chance to prove that the comeback that stunned Eala in January was not a one-time moment. One match is already on the record. The sequel is waiting on the draw. Parks' spot came on the strength of her ranking inside the cutoff. The main draw features 96 players over 10 days at the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio, with a tournament purse of more than $7 million. For context, that prize money commitment is bigger than the entire season purse of any WTA 250 event on the calendar. This is not a 125 tournament where Parks can grind through a qualifier or 2 and hope for a favorable draw. This is one of the biggest hardcourt events in North America before the US Open. If the draw sends them toward each other, and this is the part the story must hedge until the bracket is officially published, the rematch would arrive at the exact stage of Eala's season when her finishing ability has been freshly tested and at the exact stage of Parks' season when her comeback story is still being rebuilt. A 6-0 set lives in both of their memories. Parks erased one. Eala has now produced 2. The collision would not simply be the same match twice. It would be the same scoreline applied by both players in completely different directions. Jessica Pegula, then ranked number 3 in the world, lost the DC Open final 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. In her post-match comments, Pegula described Eala as not fun to play against. That sentence is neither a complaint nor a simple compliment. It is a peer describing an opponent she could not solve. Pegula is a multiple-time Grand Slam semi-finalist, a consistent top-3 player, and one of the highest-ranked Americans on tour. Her assessment immediately after the loss is about as close as professional tennis gets to a peer review. The WTA's Champions Corner interview series added another layer. Eala, speaking the day after the title, said, "I feel all the love." The sentence is small, but it may be one of the most important things she has said in 2026. It places the work in the context of the people she is most accountable to, especially the Filipino diaspora that fills the stands wherever she plays. The family in Mallorca. The fans watching from the Philippines. The supporters who have followed every step of the rebuild. The third voice belongs to Alycia Parks herself, and it appears more clearly in her body language than in any press transcript. In Melbourne, when the cameras closed in on her face between the first and second sets, the tears were visible. She did not speak publicly at length about that match in the days afterward. The comeback was her statement. And that statement was not a quote. It was a 6-3 set won immediately after losing the first set 0-6. The room Eala has just walked into matters more than the door she walked through to get there. The WTA Top 20 in late 2026 includes Aryna Sabalenka at the top, Iga Swiatek in the conversation, Jessica Pegula at number 3, Elena Rybakina after a strong stretch, Madison Keys inside the group, Coco Gauff close behind, Jasmine Paolini in the mix, and now Alexandra Eala at number 20. That is not simply a ranking number. It is direct entry into the biggest events on the calendar. It is the difference between entering a tournament as a hopeful wildcard and arriving as a seeded or directly accepted opponent with a full preparation runway. There is also a US Open implication that the numbers do not hide. The entry list for the season's final Grand Slam was published this week, and Eala is among the players entering directly into the main draw. Cincinnati is the final major hardcourt tune-up before Flushing Meadows. For Parks, a deep run in Ohio could change the seeding conversation around her within a single week. For Eala, Cincinnati becomes the test of whether the DC Open was a breakout or a destination. That distinction is the real stakes question. Breakouts are fragile. They depend on confidence, momentum, and crowd energy. Destinations are structural. They depend on serve percentages under pressure, return games held, point construction, and the ability to win 9 consecutive games when the legs are telling you to stop. The Melbourne match said not yet. The Washington match said maybe. The Cincinnati match, if the draw delivers it, will say the rest. A second measurable variable sits beside ranking and prize money. Eala's 2026 earnings have climbed above $1.5 million, a number that would have seemed almost unthinkable from the perspective of Philippine tennis just 12 months earlier. Parks' 2026 earnings are just over $760,000. Both numbers reflect what each player has been able to convert at the tournaments she has reached. The financial gap also represents a competitive gap, and the Cincinnati prize purse combined with the ranking points on offer could either widen that distance or begin closing it. The loss is still on the record. Australian Open 2026, first round, 0-6, 6-3, 6-2. Alexandra Eala led a Grand Slam first-round match against a powerful server who would later return to the top 100 conversation. She won the opening set 6-0, and she still did not win the match. That sentence is not repeated often enough when talking about 21-year-olds, because the temptation is always to celebrate the wins that come after the loss and skip over the loss itself. But the architecture of the 7 months that followed, including the Birmingham title run, the Washington title, and the ranking jump from outside the top 50 to number 20, cannot be understood without that hinge. The hinge was a 6'1" American who hit 12 aces across the final 2 sets and a Filipino left-hander who, for long stretches of the second and third sets, could not solve the serve. Eala never needed a dramatic speech about the Melbourne loss. The recovery happened on the court, not inside a press conference. That may be the strongest statement a young player can make. Let the next tournament become the answer to the last one. Now the room is different. The WTA Top 20 is the address. Walk through the names with her. Sabalenka, Pegula, Rybakina, Keys, Gaff, Paulini, Eala. None of those players gave her the entry. She earned it. And she earned it on the same kind of hard court where Alycia Parks handed her a lesson in January, before Eala later faced the world's number 3 player in Washington and answered a completely different question by winning 9 consecutive games to close the final. If Cincinnati's draw places Parks and Eala on a collision course, and the bracket is published in the coming days, the story cannot promise that meeting until the draw actually says so. But if it happens, the second match will be played in a completely different room from the first. Eala walked into a Grand Slam first round that day as a rising 21-year-old. Now she is walking into one of the biggest hardcourt tournaments of the season as a top 20 player. The finishing skill is documented. The comeback nerve is documented in her opponent too. And one number keeps resurfacing every time this story is told. 12. Parks hit 12 aces in that match. She was supposed to be finished after losing the first set 0-6. She was not. Eala later produced 2 6-0 sets of her own. And in Washington, she produced another number that changed the conversation. 9. 9 consecutive games to close out a top 3 opponent. Those numbers are not a forecast. They are the evidence the second match would be played on. The scoreboard in Cincinnati, if the draw brings them together, will not erase what happened in Melbourne. It will reveal what Melbourne created. This rivalry is not a villain versus hero story. Alycia Parks is a credible opponent with a proven serve, a history of reaching the top 40, and the temperament to recover from a 0-6 opening set under intense pressure. Alexandra Eala is a 21-year-old who rebuilt her closing game in 7 months and has now earned a place among the best players on tour. The tennis decides the rest.